Andrew Carnegie. His life was a true rags to riches story. Born to a poor Scottish family that immigrated to the United States, Carnegie became a powerful businessman and a leading force in the American steel industry. Today, he is remembered as an industrialist, millionaire, and philanthropist. Although Andrew Carnegie became a millionaire, he did not start life as one. He was born in 1835 into a working-class family in Scotland. In 1848, his family immigrated to the United States and settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Go Steelers!
When he was 13, he got his first job in a textile mill, earning $1.20 a week. Wow, that's enough to maybe buy a piece of candy and a soda pop. He then earned $2 a week tending a steam engine. And the following year, Carnegie worked as a messenger boy in a telegraph office for $2.50 per week. Because of his quickness and hard work, he was soon promoted to telegraph operator and was paid a whopping $5 a week. Slowly but surely, Carnegie was working his way up. In 1853, he went to work for the Pennsylvania Railroad for $35 per month as the personal telegrapher and assistant to Thomas Scott, superintendent. Under Scott, Carnegie learned all about the railroad industry and later became a superintendent himself. Scott also taught Carnegie Andrew about investing in the stock market. While working for the railroad, Carnegie began making investments. He made many wise choices and found that his investments, especially
by the next
those
decade,
in oil,
most of Carnegie's time was dedicated to the steel industry. His business,
He left the railroad
which became
in
known as the Carnegie
1865
Steel
to
Company,
focus on his
revolutionized
other
steel
business
production in the United
including
States.
the Keystone Bridge Company.
Carnegie built plants around the country using technology and methods that made manufacturing steel easier, faster, and more productive. For every step of the process, he owned exactly what he needed: the raw materials, ships and railroads for transporting the goods, and even coal fields to fuel the steel furnaces. This is known as vertical integration. This start-to-finish strategy helped Carnegie become the dominant force in the industry and an exceedingly wealthy man. It also made him known as one of America's builders, as his business helped to fuel the economy and shape the nation into what it is today. By 1889, Carnegie Steel Corporation was the largest of its kind in the world. Some felt that the company's success came at the expense of its workers. The most notable case of this came in 1892, and it was known as the Homestead Strike. The strike was in Homestead, Pennsylvania, and it pitted one of the most powerful new corporations, Carnegie Steel Company, against the nation's strongest trade union, the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers. In 1889, Strike had won the steelworkers a favorable 3-year contract, but by 1892, Carnegie was determined to break the union. His plant manager, Henry Clay Frick, stepped up production demands, and when the union refused to accept the new conditions, Frick began locking the workers out of the plant. On July 2nd, all were discharged. The union, limited to skilled tradesmen, represented less than 1/5 of the 3,800 workers at the plant, but the rest voted overwhelmingly to join the strike. An advisory committee was formed, which directed the strike and soon took over the company town as well. Frick sent for 300 Pinkerton guards, but when they arrived by barge on July 6th, they were met by 10,000 strikers, many of them armed. After an all-day battle, the Pinkertons surrendered and were forced to run a gauntlet through the crowd. In all, 9 strikers and 7 Pinkertons were killed. Many strikers and most of the remaining Pinkertons were injured, some seriously. The sheriff, unable to recruit local residents against the strikers, appealed to Governor William Stone for support. 8,000 militia arrived on July 12th. Gradually, under militia protection, strikebreakers got the plant running again. Meanwhile, the corporation had more than 100 strikers arrested, some of them for murder, though most were released. Each case consumed much of the union's time, money, and energy. Eventually, the strike lost momentum and it ended on November 20th, 1892. With the Amalgamated Association virtually destroyed, Carnegie Steel moved quickly to institute longer hours and lower wages. The Homestead strike inspired many workers, but it also underscored how difficult it was for any union to prevail against the combined power of the corporation and the government. In 1901, Carnegie made a dramatic change in his life. He sold his business to the United States Steel Corporation, started by legendary financier J.P. Morgan. The sale earned him more than $200 million. At the age of 65, Carnegie decided to spend the rest of his days helping others. While he had begun his philanthropic work years earlier by building libraries and making donations, Carnegie expanded his efforts in the early 20th century. He even wrote about his philosophy, where one is required to be ethically responsible, helping others socially, if they are more fortunate. His essays are called The Gospel of Wealth. Carnegie, an avid reader for much of his life, donated approximately $5 million to the New York Public Library so that the library could open several branches in 1901. Devoted to learning, he established the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, which is now known as Carnegie Mellon University in 1904. The next year, he created the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching in 1905. With his strong interest in peace, he formed the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in 1910. He made so many numerous other donations, and it is said that more than 2,800 libraries were opened with his support. An interesting fact is that Andrew Carnegie was the richest man in the world in the early 20th century. He also once offered to give the Philippines $20 million in order for the country to buy its independence, which I'm totally okay with him offering me $20 million, but oh well, they didn't go for it. And last, Carnegie and Rockefeller spent a decade exchanging Christmas presents, such as a cheap cardboard waistcoat, which was a jab at Carnegie's poor Scottish immigrant beginnings. And in return, Carnegie would send Rockefeller, who was a very devout Baptist who didn't drink, a fine bottle of whiskey. So at least they both had great senses of humor. Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world.